The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, joining you live from Dallas. If you don't know me, and we haven't met yet, I am a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose and an organizational logotherapist. My team and I help companies to detect and articulate their purpose to thread it through culture and operations. We work with forward-reaching organizations to develop inspirational leaders who create cultures where people actually want to come to work and do their best. And we provide programs that enable individual team members and leaders to discover and unleash their passion and purpose at work to catalyze fulfillment, engagement, and productivity. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at elisecortez.com. Also, if you like the content of this show, you may also be interested in my next book coming out in March of 2023. It's called The Great Revitalization: How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. You can pre-order your copy at bookshop.org or barnesandnoble.com. Thanks in advance for your interest. Now let's get to today's program. With us is Cynthia Covey. She's an author, teacher, speaker, and an active participant in her community. She has contributed to the writing of several books and articles, notably including The Third Alternative by Stephen R. Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and the 6 Most Important Decisions You'll Ever Make, both by Sean Covey. She's a co-author with her late father, Stephen R. Covey, of the book, Live Your Life in Crescendo. Your most important work is always ahead of you, which we'll be discussing today. She joins us today from Salt Lake City, Utah. Cynthia, a hearty welcome to Working on Purpose.
Thanks so much, Elise. I look forward to being on your show. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're so welcome. I'm delighted. And let's just go ahead and show this beautiful thing that she brought into the world to our viewers. This is the gorgeous book, Live Life in Crescendo. It's gorgeous. And of course, I love that crescendo is in cursive going upward, just as it should be, right?
Right.
So getting into it here, of course, I'm a big fan of your father and the work that you all do together as a family. And I think many of the people tuning in are as well. So I know that, and you say this in the book beautifully, Cynthia, that he stood to unleash human potential, which of course aligns with my world too. And he envisioned that Live Life in Crescendo to be the introduction of his new idea to people worldwide. And this book represents what you as a family consider to be his final contribution, his last lecture, his concluding opus, which is so beautiful that we get to celebrate that. So I know it took you 10 years to bring it to life.
I did. I feel grateful to co-author this with my father. We started it years ago when I foolishly asked him if 7 Habits was the best thing he was ever going to write. And he said, that insults me. He said, am I one and done? Why do I get up every day and pretend to write and speak if I've already made my best contributions? So he really believed that he had important things still to contribute beyond 7 Habits, and he did. And one of these was this Live Life in Crescendo is his personal mission statement the last 10 years of his life. And so he asked me, he said, why don't you interview me and take this idea and then make it a different leadership book, and let's have a lot of stories that tell about people who are successfully living in Crescendo and inspire them, famous and non-famous people that they could relate to, so readers could see themselves in this different situations, and that they could choose to live in Crescendo. So we began that together and enjoyed it for a few years. I was busy with other things. I have 6 children and lots of grandkids, and was involved in a lot of different things. And I regret that we didn't finish it while he was still living. He unexpectedly passed away. And I write about that at kind of at the end of the book, our family through Crescendo. But I feel like I want to be a faithful translator of his vision for Live Life in Crescendo. And so it's been a pleasure to finish it. And I'm thrilled that it's coming out on the 27th.
Me too. I'm glad to catch it and share it with my listeners and viewers. So one of the things that you say in the book is you say that he envisioned that the crescendo mentality. So we refer to this all throughout the book as the crescendo mentality, or even better yet, the crescendo paradigm. But he envisioned that the crescendo mentality would promote looking to the future with hope and optimism, believing that we can always grow and learn, serve and contribute through every stage of our lives, and believing that our greatest and most important achievements may still lie ahead. That's the crux of the book, yes?
Right. Yes, that's true. 2 parts, really. Crescendo, he chose a musical symbol. Crescendo, as you know, if you've ever gone to a concert, and you know what a crescendo is, and how the symbol actually is like expands. It starts at one point and then expands, and crescendo gains momentum and energy and power. And it's beautiful to hear a crescendo. The opposite, diminuendo, is the opposite symbol. It starts wide and then narrows and comes to a point. Just like, it slows down, it's lessens in energy and power, and eventually stops and comes to an end. And so the idea that the crescendo mentality is that you have a conscious choice through different ages and stages in your life and things that happen to you to decide to live in crescendo or diminuendo. And the second part, the subtitle, refers to your most important work is always ahead of you. When do we know when we're making our best contribution and our greatest work? We've got to get up every day with the thought that I still have important things to do and to contribute. And I'm going to continue until I drop.
And of course, I can relate to that as an organizational logotherapist. And I know you and I have talked about your father has met Viktor Frankl. How wonderful is that? But certainly that certainly maps over for me, that idea that if you have something to look forward to be of service to others, that certainly promotes your will to live, your will to meaning. And it's essential for a vital life.
It's really essential, Elise. I tell a story in there about the Seville Retirement Center. It's a group of 70s, 80s, 90s, even 100-year-old women, mostly women, that were in this center that decided they didn't want to sit and watch TV all day. And one of them was organized. She called her friend a do-gooder. She said she's always wanting to do good. Let's volunteer for the humanitarian center that's nearby and make blankets and make quilts and toys for children and little outfits for them. And these women, literally, some were blind, and they would stuff balls, little cloth balls for kids. Others would make dresses and quilts and things. And the counselor there called it the life-saving room. He said those that didn't participate, that were in their rooms, looking at the TV, sitting there, sleeping, not doing anything. He said they died very quickly.
Yes.
These people had purpose, and they got up every day and worked hard, envisioning what these items would mean to someone who is in need in underprivileged countries and clear across the world, contributing in small ways. But they would donate like 1,500 articles of clothing and quilts and things a year. So purpose really keeps you alive. Yeah.
So I'm going to add a little bit more meat around that for our listeners and viewers, because I believe very strongly in teaching through this program. So from the logotherapeutic vantage point, of course, that speaks to self-transcendence, being of service to others. So purpose is always about serving other people, right? So that's why it's so important. And I can tell you this, Cynthia, I wish I'd known more about logotherapy and even this topic that we're talking about now 3 years ago, when both of my parents died in January of 2019. They did that. They sat in front of the TV. My mother was so sharp, but she had oxygen 24/7. If she would have volunteered her time, even one or 2 hours a week, I believe she'd still be here today.
Yeah, that's true. Purpose keeps you going. I have a great quote by Pablo Picasso, of all people, that said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away.
Yes.
And contribution and service is interwoven throughout the entire book as ways to have meaning and purpose in your life and fulfillment and feel like you're making a difference, small or large, in other people's lives.
Totally agree with that. Now, speaking of being something to somebody else's life, mattering to someone, you have to tell the story of when you took the business trip with your dad to San Francisco, and what happened, what transpired in that experience, what you had set out for. It's beautiful, and it says so much about who your family is.
Thank you. It's one of my favorite childhood memories. And I was 12 years old. I'm the oldest of 9 children. And my father invited me to go on a business trip with him to San Francisco. So I live in Salt Lake City, and I'd never been there, but I'd heard about the amazing, magical trolley cars and all the wonderful things that were there. And so together we planned a trip to enjoy this time together. And we part of the fun was just talking about it. We enjoyed talking about it for a month or two before, just planning every detail. It included, I was supposed to wait at the back of the room in this nice hotel. During the day, I'd be swimming and doing fun things, and my dad was speaking. And then with the last 20 minutes, I would come and join him and wait at the back of the room for him to make his way up to me, and then we would take off. And we had every minute planned. We were going to ride the famous trolley cars all up and down the hills and see what that was like. I'm so excited about that. We were going to shop in some of the famous stores. I could buy a few clothes for school for some that I looked forward to and thought that would be fun. Then we would head over to Chinatown and have our favorite food, Chinese food, which we both loved. We decided we'd catch a taxi back from Chinatown to the hotel and we'd go swimming before it closed, just squeaking in before 9:00 and get the last few laps in and go back to our hotel room and order a hot fudge sundae and watch a movie until midnight. And we were so excited about it, especially me. And so I waited as planned at the back of the room, and my dad was making his way up to me, and lo and behold, one of his friends from college grabs him and gives him a big hug and says, "Oh, Steve, I haven't seen you forever. I can't believe that it's been so many years. I came purposely knowing you're going to be speaking today. And my wife and I would love to invite you to come down and eat on the wharf with us tonight and catch up." Well, my dad said, "Well, I'm also here with my daughter." And he looks over at me and says, "Oh, you're welcome to join us as well." And I thought, oh my gosh, my trolley car is going down the hill without me. I hated seafood. We wanted Chinese food. I didn't want to be stuck talking with, some old people, somebody no. And I expected the worst, as my dad was so excited to see him. And then I heard him say, "Bob, I'd love to do that. That'd be so fun, but not tonight. Cynthia and I have a special date planned, don't we, honey?" And he winked at me. I saw that trolley car pop back into my view and grabbed my hand, and we're out the door. And outside, I was kind of choked up. And I said, "Well, Dad, that's your good friend. Don't you want to go do something with him tonight?" And he said, "Hey, I wouldn't miss this for anything. And you'd rather have Chinese food than seafood, right? Let's go catch that trolley car." And so this seemingly small incident and experience that happened to me when I was 12 set the foundation for my relationship with my father. Looking back, this is one of the memories that I have of him keeping his word to me and of putting first things first, as he taught, and showing me that in relationships, the little things are the big things, prioritizing our date and sacrificing being with his friend that he hadn't seen for me. And it meant so much. It really showed that my relationship with him was very vital to him and important, more important than anything else at that moment. Mm-hmm. So that taught me a lot, just watching that experience.
Huge lesson for leadership, for life. And you also say in the book that all of your siblings can cite a similar kind of a story.
There were 9 of us, but my parents weren't perfect, but they both worked very hard at trying to live what they believed and taught. And when they made mistakes, they apologized to us and they started over. And each of them could point to a similar San Francisco type story where they felt valued, for being themselves, for being their child. So I was grateful for that.
It's beautiful and such a great thing to presence for our listeners. Another great thing that we have to talk about that is smack down the lane of Live Your Life in Crescendo. It's a fun fact that I didn't know that you talk about in your book, is that your father had been teaching at a university for years when he decided at, wait for it, when? Age 51, to go into business for the first time and start Stephen R. Covey and Associates. This is very close to my timeline. So I take huge comfort and encouragement in this, Cynthia.
Well, I talk in the book about, we kind of identify 4 main stages. We believe that the crescendo mentality can be applied throughout your entire life, from when you're younger to older. But one of the stages, the first one, is the midlife stage, where you kind of, maybe you wake up and you're 50 years old and you think, am I where I wanted to be? Am I as successful as I thought I'd be at this stage? And my father was in this stage. He was 51 and he'd been teaching and he considered himself a teacher at heart, always wanted to be a teacher first. And he had enjoyed it. But there was something stirring in him where he felt like, I feel like I have more to give. I've done this for 20 years. I feel like that he was developing at the time the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the material for it. And he felt like, I want to be in an environment, a workplace, where people can take what I'm teaching and apply it out in the marketplace and apply it to organizations and in leadership. And he wasn't able to get that as much with the students. And so he took a giant leap of faith at 51. I said there were 9 kids in our family, and they put their house in hock, and they tightened their belts and decided to step out in the dark and take this leap and do he was going to start his own company, Stephen Covey and Associates, and do business consulting on what he'd been speaking about. And my mom was supportive of that, and they did it. It was a leap of faith, and he left a secure job at a university and a good salary, a decent salary to begin this. And it proved in years to come to be a great step. The foundation of all of his work has been teaching. But if he hadn't have left the university when he did, he never would have had the impact of his books that have affected millions of people and inspired millions of people to bring out their greatest potential. And so it was a leap of faith, but he decided to live in Crescendo and take it.
Mm-hmm. And we all know the end and the continuing story that goes with that. So that here. Let's grab our first break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We were on the air with Cynthia Covey Haller. She's a co-author with her late father, Stephen R. Covey, of Live Life in Crescendo. Your most important work is always ahead of you. We've been talking about where this book came from and some of its foundational principles. After the break, we're going to get more into the details. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us. Before we get back into the program, I'd want you to check out Amazon for me or Barnes & Noble for my book. It's called Purpose Ignited. And I really wrote it to awaken readers to their passion and purpose and start them down the path of becoming an inspirational leader who can create a workplace where people actually want to come to work and do their best. And it's the basis of my Vitally Inspired program. So I hope you'll check that out as well while you're there checking out Cynthia's. If you're just joining us, my guest is Cynthia Covey Haller. She's the co-author with her late father, Stephen R. Covey, of Live Life in Crescendo. Your most important work is always ahead of you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So before we get back into one really important tool that you spoke about, gratitude, I do want to present something really important that aligned with my notion of leadership, and that is what you both talk about in the book is the definition of leadership is to communicate worth and potential. So it's about catching people doing things right. And when we express good thoughts about people, it motivates them to keep doing their best. So leadership is about communicating worth and potential. I love that, Cynthia. It so aligns.
I love that definition that my father had of leadership. The full quote is, leadership is communicating worth and potential so clearly that that they're inspired to see it in themselves. A lot of times people don't see in themselves their worth and potential. And if you ask a group of people, who believed in you when no one else did? Who saw something in you when you didn't even see it in yourself? I think to a person, almost everyone would say a certain teacher, my parent, a friend, a mentor, someone that you could point to. And so living in Crescendo, the Crescendo mentality promotes looking around you, seeing someone that needs a lift, that needs a mentor, someone to guide them, to build a bridge for them to follow you as an example, and really care and show them that they have great worth and potential, even if they don't see it.
Mm-hmm. It's essential. So beautiful. And then on the other side of being communicated to, something like that, is this little thing called gratitude, which you talk about so beautifully in the book, Cynthia. You say that living life in Crescendo includes showing consistent gratitude, even when you don't feel there is much to be grateful for. There is something about switching your mindset from one of self-pity to one of outwardness and gratitude that is healing and even transforming.
There's something amazing, Elise, that happens when you look outward, that you tend to heal inwardly. And I tell a story about a man named John Kralik, that he's 53. He's in a dark time of his life. He's going through a second divorce. He's living in a little apartment. He feels like he's lost his relationships with his two older kids who don't live near him. And he feels he's losing it with his younger child. And he's overweight. He's not doing well at work. And he feels like he's living in diminuendo. He's kind of shutting down and things are not opening up for him. And his girlfriend just dropped him too. And so he's got all these things happening. And he picks up a note that his girlfriend did write him during Christmas to thank him for a gift that he gave her. It's just a simple thank you note, but it meant a lot to him, and the way that she expressed it. And so he thought, what can I do to kind of expand my circle of influence here? I feel like I'm failing. And so he committed to write a thank you note, a handwritten note, every day for 365 days of the year, to anyone who had done him a good turn, someone in his apartment complex, someone at work, even opposing attorneys. He was an attorney, a lawyer, and anyone, a clerk, somebody that he had met, somebody who at the bank, someone who had served him, any little thing, he decided to thank them. And as he did this, he automatically turned outward to other people, and he healed inwardly, and things improved for him. He gave more confidence. He felt like he could start to lose weight, and did lose weight. He improved his relationships with his children, many of whom he wrote these notes to, and told them how much they meant to him. He did all these things, hoping to be able to increase his circle of influence in his life, and it just opened up for him. Within 2 years, he had written a best-selling book called A Simple Act of Gratitude, How Learning to Say Thank You Changed My Life. And so he realized, as he realized what he did have and what he was grateful for and expressed it, he realized that he did have a lot of blessings, and that he had a lot to share. And he changed, and it healed him. So he also fulfilled his dream. His dream as a lawyer was to become a judge. And after several more years, he attained that goal was appointed judge in the LA Circuit District Court. And so anyway, it's a great story. I love how powerful gratitude can be to heal you as you look outward toward other people and serve.
Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful story. I also have a segment in my book about gratitude, and that story just totally brings it home, Cynthia. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about, I discovered in the thicket of that new book of yours, an 8th habit, which is, you say, find your voice and help others find theirs.
Well, I don't know if you realize, Elise, but when I was asking my dad, are you going to write anything as great as 7 Habits? Well, he did write a book called The Eighth Habit. And that is the eighth habit. Find your voice and help others find theirs, which causes a ripple effect, a domino effect. If you've ever thrown a stone into a lake and watched it, start at the beginning, a little bit of a ripple, and then it literally goes out and touches everything. This is kind of what I'm talking about. And we give different examples of this, but one of them that I liked was a man named Anquan Bolden, who was a football player in the NFL. And he had won the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award in football, which is given for humanitarian work. And before this happened, he tells about how when he finally did make it into the NFL, he said, I was living life. Nobody could tell me anything. I had made it. I'd reached my goal to get in the NFL, and I thought I was at the height of my career and my happiness. But he said, I very soon realized that God didn't put me on this earth to make touchdowns. He said, I realized that I'm here to help other people. And the rest of my life, besides playing football, I'm going to try to serve other people and do as much good as I can. And he and his wife started a scholarship fund for underprivileged students that every year that he gives so many scholarships to help put them through school, and has done a lot of other humanitarian work, taking kids shopping for school clothes and doing things in his community, giving back. That ripple effect is felt throughout his community. And he found his voice, and he helped others find theirs through his service. So I think that's a great challenge for all of us to look around us and identify where we could help somebody find their voice or their meaning and purpose in life. And at the same time, it also expands ours.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's so much need in the world, right? We're never going to be done helping to improve the world. So it's a forever deal. Nobody gets off the hook, right? You don't want anybody to get off the hook anyway.
Elise, if I can give another example of that.
Yeah, please.
A little known person maybe is William Henley, who was he lived in England, in Gloucester, England, in the 1800s, and his father died and left the mother with 6 kids, and so they were very poor. He was in school there, and he said the headmaster gave him more than anything, he needed someone to be kind to him, to believe in him and affirm him. And he was also an English professor and taught him about the love of poetry. So Henley had a rough life. He ended up in the hospital for a couple of years with tuberculosis, and they cut off one of his legs. But he learned to write poetry, and he wrote the great poem Invictus that is so inspiring about I am the captain of my soul. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Well, this poem, years later, Henley died in 1953, but his poetry lived on. So who picks up that poem and adopts it? But Nelson Mandela, who is in prison 20-something years on Robben Island in South Africa. And this poem, because it becomes his inspiration. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. I can take responsibility and do something more than what I'm destined here for. And so he inspires other prisoners with this. At 71, he gets out of prison, finally released after all these almost 28 years. And you think 71, your life, what can you do? But like the subtitle of the book, his most important work was truly ahead of him. 4 years later, he is elected the president of South Africa, the first Black president ever, with William de Klerk, who was the president before, as his vice president. And he is dismantling apartheid and influencing and changing the whole world. So who knows, but the ripple effect from William Henley's poem of Invictus has inspired Mandela and then filled the entire world. It's an incredible example.
It is. Thank you for sharing that, because I was going to cue that up if you didn't bring it up, because Nelson Mandela is a very important critical figure for me, and it inspires me so often. So thank you for sharing that before I even asked you to. So it's beautiful. Thank you. And on that subject, one thing that I'm really aware of, and I certainly, align again with your work, is this notion that we leaders need to be inspired. In order to be effective, we need to be inspired. So what you say is engaging the power of positive affirmation in the role of a true mentor, a true teacher, and true leadership. There is nothing more fulfilling than helping another human soul see their potential and inspiring them to greatness. So be open to inspiration from your own conscious and from outside sources. Recognize that you will soon have greater influence over other people. So this is the heart of my leadership program, Cynthia, this notion of being able to really fill yourself with inspiration so that you can be of that service to other people. So I was, of course, delighted to hear that you both aligned on that topic too.
Yeah. My father taught and believed that life is a mission, not a career. You can get released from jobs and careers. Those can end. But your mission, your unique mission in life that each of us have unique skills and talents and things to offer others that really are unique to us, that would meet a need of someone else. And so we challenge readers in this book to examine what are your passions? What do you feel strongly about? What needs do you see around you? Listen to your conscience, because more than anything, we kind of know what we should do in a lot of situations. Listen to the voice inside you that says you need to serve more. Cross the street and visit that lonely neighbor. Volunteer at your school up the road that is overcrowded and that don't have a lot of readers for these young students. Mentor the person next to you, the young intern that's sitting next to you that has the deer in the headlights look and doesn't know, doesn't feel confident, and you're a successful leader. And so Tom Peters taught that leaders shouldn't create followers, they create more leaders. And that's kind of what you're talking about, Elise, with your work, that to affirm other people, that as leaders, we need to do that and be affirmed as that has happened to us. And our influence can spread easily that way.
Indeed, agreed on every note. And on that note, let's take our last break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We are on the air with Cynthia Covey-Haller. She's the co-author with her late father, Stephen R. Covey, of the Live Life in Crescendo book. Your most important work is always ahead of you. We've been talking more about aspects of the book, gratitude and other things, inspiring yourself, being of service. After the break, we're going to continue our conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. One other bit of news I want to share with you before we get back with Cynthia is the second book that I brought out, which is called Passionately Striving and Why, is now available as well. That book is a collection of 25 stories from women around the world that I found personally, invited them to share their very intimate story of how they discovered their purpose and are now serving from it today. So it's women from Australia to Zambia. So I hope you'll check that one out as well. It's meant to be one part education, one part inspiration. If you're just joining us today, my guest is Cynthia Covey-Haller. She's the co-author with her late father, Stephen R. Covey, of the Live Life in Crescendo. Your most important work is always ahead of you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So one other thing I want to go back to with regard to the story with Nelson Mandela that's important. We started to say it before, but I really want to bring it home. Another thing that you say in the book, which really resonates with me, and just yesterday I was doing a coaching session as well and talked about your work with someone who's only 54 and is ready to move on to something else. But you say that so often the first 2/3 of our life can prepare us for the last third of our lives where we can really make our finest contribution. I think that is so encouraging, Cynthia, especially for people who are like, am I washed up? Am I done? Is this all I'm going to be able to do? No, it isn't.
You couldn't have said it better. You have so much ahead of you, no matter what circumstances you've faced. It's like when you're driving in a car, you're looking ahead. Imagine how far you'd get if you're just looking in the rearview mirror. at past failures or your past successes, or looking over your shoulder. I mean, you'd end up in a ditch. And so you can't focus on what you did that was the failures or successes in the past. What's in the past is past. You've got to look ahead at where you're going. And it's a really inspiring. I love those stories that you said that in that last book that you wrote about the women that have inspirational stories on what they've done and contributed. Live Life in Crescendo teaches that your most important work could be ahead of you. So don't limit yourself thinking, I'm in a rut, I'm stagnant, I don't like my job, my boss hates me, what can I do? I have no options. Or, I'm going through a divorce. I've been laid off from a job, or I've been diagnosed with cancer. I mean, the idea is that you may not be able to choose all those circumstances, but you can choose how you respond to what's happened to you. And so there's lots of examples in the book about that.
Yes, there are. It's just chock full. All right. So at this point, Cynthia, I think we have done a good job of convincing our listeners and viewers that this is a good idea to adopt the crescendo mentality. So let's teach them how to get started. So there's 4 criteria that you address in terms of ideas here. So let's talk about each one of them. And what I like to do in my program, Cynthia, is talk, of course, conceptually and teach what it is that you do, but then also let them walk away with how to immediately apply it. So the first thing you talk about is the need conscience.
Right. This is something you can do right now. You could identify right now, what's a need I see around me. So look at your own family first, and look and see if someone, maybe your daughter's going through a hard divorce and your grandkids are suffering, or maybe there's a need in your intergenerational family, in your community. Look for a need, and then with your conscience is the other part. Identify, what is it that I can do? How can I meet this need? How can I respond to it in the best way possible? The second one is vision and passion. If you want me just to go on.
Sure, yeah.
Your vision and passion are greatly needed in your life experience. You have more unique skills than you believe you do. You have a lifetime as you're going through of relationships and things to offer. So your vision for someone else's life and what they can accomplish, or maybe some great project that's in a humanitarian project that's in your community that you can sense a need that you've identified, then lend your vision and passion to it. Then you use your resources and talents. Then you say that you're in the second half of life, which I call kind of toward the end of your life. Some people think, what can I do? I'm 75 years old. I don't have a big income. How can I contribute to making a difference? This is a question that a 75-year-old woman did ask a homeless advocate. Said, how can I possibly make a difference? And she said to her, could you donate 1 can of soup a week? And she said, yeah, I think I could do that. She said, imagine, think of a single mother who's opening up that can of soup and giving it to her children so they don't go to bed hungry that night. Do you think that would make a difference in their lives? And she knew it would. So over the next several years, she donated 1 can of soup every week and supplied hundreds of meals to people that were in need. So use your resources and talents, your skills, your experience, everything that you've been through, your money, if you're blessed with that, and your desire to help just start and with this need that you've identified. And the last one is resourcefulness and initiative. This is one that my dad always made famous in our family. It wasn't always popular because you could never blame anybody with him. You couldn't say, I have the worst math teacher. He's making me miserable. I hate it and I'm failing. He just would say, well, use your R&I, make it happen. And I'm like, well, what do you mean, Dad? I'm telling you, this guy's really bad and he doesn't relate with people and he's mean and gives us too much homework. Well, he wanted me to, use my resources and my initiative and switch to another class if I could, get extra help, talk to him about it, ask for tutoring, do whatever, make it happen. And so resourceful initiative is, if you are in a miserable situation, you're stagnant, if you have a life-changing experience and you're undergoing a real crisis in your life, take responsibility and show the R&I and change that around. stop living in diminuendo and realize if I do certain things, I can increase my circle of influence in power and in energy, and I can take control of my life and change and make a difference and improve my lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That last bit is really interesting and important. You talk about in the book, and of course I recognize this too. There's a parallel or similarity with Viktor Frankl's work, that we're responsible human beings, which also means we are responsible. And that speaks to human agency. We always have a way to go forward if only we'll go looking for it. And I think that's so encouraging when we hear I can't or it's not possible. That's self-limitation.
I love that response, Abel. Frankel always said not to ask, what is it I want from life, but what is life asking from me? What does life want from me? He tells about two people that were in the concentration camp with him, and he said they could never tell. They were trying to figure out who would survive and who wouldn't. And he said the main thing that he discovered, he realized those that would survive was if they had a purpose to live for, something to do still yet that hadn't been accomplished. For one man, it was a scientific project he was working on that he felt like was a medical breakthrough that only he knew about, and he had to make it. He had to live and survive so he could finish. The second was a man that had a dear child in another country who he knew was waiting for him, and so he said other people had different goals and things, but if they didn't have a purpose or a reason, a meaning in their life to live for and to work for, they would pass away. And these two survived because of their purpose. They were saying, what is life asking of me? What do I still have to accomplish? And it kept him alive.
Mm-hmm. So I can also bring that back home to my family again. You reminded me, Cynthia, when I came back from living in Brazil and Spain in the early 1990s. And I came back and I saw my paternal grandfather for the first time in quite some time. And I kind of checked in with him. I'm like, Grandpa, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you up to these days? And he turned to me with this look of complete emptiness in his eyes. And he said, nothing. I'm not doing anything. And I knew immediately. I went back to my principal. Mayday, this is a problem. This is a big problem. And then it wasn't that long after that he left. So that thing of having a reason, so the will to meaning, the will to live, really is real.
A Russian philosopher said, he who has a will to live can bear almost anyhow. And that's really true. I'm thinking of Julie Andrews, who such a beautiful actress and singer. Well, she in her 60s, she had throat cancer, and when they were doing the surgery, it damaged her vocal cords. She was not able to sing anymore, and she said she was devastated. I mean, this is what she was known for, her voice and acting and singing. And she said she kind of went to diminuendo a little bit and thought, what can I do? I'm ruined. And then she said, it's true what they say in The Sound of Music. When a door closes, somewhere a window is opened. And she said, my daughter and I started writing children's books. Mm-hmm. And she said they wrote this series, The Very Fairy Princess, that became New York Times bestsellers. And she said, had I not had this happen with my voice, I never would have discovered the pleasure of writing for children. And they've written, a dozen books that have been very successful. So sometimes when something happens, a setback, C.S. Lewis said, it prepares us, setbacks prepare us in hardships for ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And this is our challenge, to take what life deals us and to choose to say, how am I going to react to this? Am I going to live in crescendo, or am I going to shut down and live in diminuendo? The choice is ours how to respond.
It's so true. You just spoke of C.S. Lewis. A friend of mine gave me his grief book about losing his wife that I'm reading now, because I'm this year putting out the memoir of losing my parents and what losing them has taught me about living. That's the whole idea of the book. It's funny that you bring him up. That's so amazing. Like, I think our worlds could probably go round and round, crossing over and thread through all throughout a beautiful fabric coat.
He's one of my favorites. I don't know. I think that we oftentimes will just think, well, this is how it is. I'm not successful. I haven't done this or that. But true success, as defined in this book, is that you are successful in your most important roles. that story at the beginning about my father in the San Francisco. He was successful in his most important role, which was to be a father to me right then. And success is different than how the world would frame it. We shouldn't compare ourselves to others, which we always do. But if you're successful in roles that are important to you as a humanitarian, in your family roles, as a leader in an organization, you have an opportunity to expand that and help bring the potential out in so many other people.
I completely agree, which is what I hope to be doing in my life for sure. And on that note, this is relative to this too, back on the whole purpose front here. I really can't resist that we talk about Richard Leiter, who you talk about in the book as a preeminent life coach and author of The Power of Purpose. You say that he explains the vital importance of purpose as follows, and I quote, "Purpose is fundamental. It's not a luxury. It's essential for our health, our happiness, our healing, and our longevity. Every human being wants to make a dent in one way or another." So true.
There's also sorts of studies that show that somebody that has a purpose to get up for in the morning and a reason to keep going, it's usually to serve other people. It's usually to, as Picasso says, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. So usually our greatest contributions, and this is another great point in the book that my father makes, he taught that life is about contribution, not accumulation, almost the opposite of what the sometimes success teaches out in the world.
Exactly.
Life is about contributing in other people's lives. And the more that you do that, the more successful you will be in the true sense of the word, and the biggest difference you'll make in the lives of other people around you.
Mm-hmm. And as we come to a close here, this is so important, this last piece here about the idea of purpose or mission. I can't tell you how often when I'm out speaking, people come to me and they're like just pleading with me, "Elise, how do I find my purpose?" And I really like how you and your father speak in the book that everyone has a unique mission that's needed in the world. And it does involve serving other people. But it's this part that's fascinating and I align with. And you say, "I've always believed that we don't invent our missions, we detect them." I think that is so true. Just as we can listen to our conscious to know what to do and whom to help, we can also detect or discover what our own unique mission is in life is meant to be. And so that involves listening, right? Being quiet, being present and listening to that.
Listening inside you, like I said, listening to your conscience. That was another thing that my dad got from Viktor Frankl, that we detect our missions. We don't invent them. We do have unique missions, each of us. And what a wonderful challenge to think to yourself, what is my mission? What am I about? What do I care about? Where with my talents and skills and things that I have to offer, what need can I make? It doesn't have to be a huge humanitarian across the world contribution. It can be, as one of my friends did, starting a food pantry, collecting food during the pandemic. We saw people opening their garages, doing them on their own, not being told anything, but just realizing there's people in need. I'm going to be collecting food to take to the food bank every Wednesday at 10. Drop off anything you have. These people were overwhelmed with donations because everybody wanted to help, but they didn't know how. They needed somebody to lead out and to say, "Here's a need, let's reach it." So my challenge for everyone is to look around you and decide to see the need, to identify it, and like you say, listen within and find out what really is my true mission. What do I need to accomplish while I'm here on this earth?
What a beautiful, beautiful way to deliver a message. We've come to the end of the show, Cynthia, and you know the show is listened to by people around the world who want to create a workplace where they actually want to come to work and give their best. We create those inspirational leaders who lead them to their greatness, and we do business that betters the world. What would you like to leave them with?
I love your podcast name, Working with Purpose. My father thought it was a false dichotomy to choose between keep working or retire. He said the third alternative is make a contribution. So if you do choose to keep working through your 70s, 80s, 90s, you have the passion, you still have something to contribute. Keep doing that. And if you do retire from a job or a career, never retire from making meaningful contributions to those around you, something that you can do until the day you go. And so making a contribution and thinking of others, looking outward, can be such a beautiful thing in your life, and it can cause a domino effect in the lives of others. So we just challenge people to to choose a crescendo mentality, to hope that they and believe that they do have important work ahead of them, and hoping that this will inspire them to believe that life is about contribution, not accumulation.
What a beautiful way to finish, Cynthia. I'm so happy to know you and have you on the show to share you with my listeners and viewers. Thank you so much for writing the book and coming on air and talking with me about it.
Well, I'm inspired by your books and your contribution. And obviously, you've got a mission about you that you've identified and detected, and you're about it. And what a wonderful service that you give all your listeners.
Thank you, Cynthia. I am living with purpose. I love it. So listeners, viewers, if you want to learn more about Cynthia Covey-Haller's books or her father, Stephen R. Covey's, just go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold, and check them out. Well worth checking into. The book is astoundingly beautiful. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it re-recorded podcast. We were on the air with Greg Sloan of Go Beyond, talking about his work helping individual employees inside companies find their purpose. Next week, we'll be on the air with Robin Short of the Workplace Peace Institute, talking about the work she is doing as a peace-building trainer, working with individuals, corporations, and nonprofit organizations in discovering the root causes of their conflicts so they may transform their relationships and create new and productive paths forward individually and as teams. See you there. Remember that work is an integral and important part of our lives. It can be one of the best adventures and means of realizing our potential and making the impact we crave. So let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.